Morning. Welcome to the November 10th meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. Councillor Allard, could you move a motion to allow me to participate in today's meeting remotely?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
You can't. That doesn't make any procedural sense.
Gosh.
All right. First of all, I'd like to welcome Deputy Mayor Chambers as the newest member to the committee. Also like to recognize outgoing member, Acting Deputy Mayor, Councillor Janice Lukes, for her long time on the committee. I also want to introduce the other members of our committee with us this morning. Councillor Matt Allard, Councillor John Orlico, our committee clerk, Brendan Harris, our CFO, Tracy Graham. Looks like you got the whole transit team with us. So we'll get right through reports here. I don't think there's any I'll also acknowledge, we are located on, the city of Winnipeg is located on Treaty 1 territory, homeland of the Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Orlico, would you care to move that the minutes of the meeting held on October 14th, 2025 be taken as read and confirmed? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now we'll move into reports. Okay, report 1, North Garage Replacement, quarterly update.
Right, so we have folks from Transit here today. We have Greg Uinku, who's the director, Lori Fisher, Jesse Crowder, and Aaron Cook. Speak to the two reports.
Great.
Good morning. So this is North Garage Replacement Project Status Report number 9 to the period ended August 31st, 2025. So the project is on schedule and on budget, approximately 55% on schedule complete and 8.2% of adopted budget spend. Main items that have occurred since our last report were really the award of the construction contract and mobilization. So PCL Construction was awarded the contract for the project on July 18th. And they mobilized to the site the week of August 11th. Initial activities have focused on establishing temporary power, site security, demolition, excavation. We have given notice to area councillor, residents, and business owners to the start of the work, and we are working with Manitoba Hydro for the design and construction of a high voltage line to connect power to that. We just brought a report forward last week to Public Works for that contract. In the upcoming procurements, we have that hydro one that was just approved, and then we are still working with our construction administration consultant to finalize their post-construction and construction activities. If I can move to the risks, we have one new risk, which we've discussed in the past, which is the reduced project contingency. So we plan to closely monitor and review costs for the project and ensure they're within our planned estimates, potentially request additional funding if that's required. Ongoing risks, we're still monitoring the impacts from the project. Still haven't seen anything significant to that effect. Maintain that one. And we mitigated 2 risks on the schedule and the project approval by awarding that in July. Financial, as of the end of August, we had submitted 9 claims to the province for a payment totaling $4.7 million. We'd received $4.3 million. If I can just go to Appendix B for a second, a little more detail on the financial piece. We have actual spent to date to the end of August, 16.377 million, that 8.2% of the budget. Engineering, design, construction of 6.6, construction, a little bit of cost there, 482,000. Land acquisition, 8.5 million, and financing overhead costs of 764,000. Back to the main body of the report. No changes on property acquisition. And our stakeholder engagement, we had a groundbreaking ceremony and unveiling of the final design on September 9th, 2025. That is it. I did bring some photos there. I don't know if we're able to pass those around.
They've been distributed.
Very good. And just as a reminder, again, there's no changes since the last report on property acquisition. Where are we with that?
We are still negotiating with the owner of the property, trying to settle the compensation portion of it. So we have expropriated the piece, we have title to it and ownership. We just need to settle the financial question.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Orlico?
I believe I read in this report, there's been a little bit of change for electric charging. Is that right? I saw some, or is that another report where they're having the federal government or somebody's put in some new requirements that are a little bit changing up our system? Did I read that right? or is that my dreams?
Not aware of
Not
Good,
that.
that's good. So we had that problem before about the stations, and I know we have now the hydro stuff dealt with. So we have the transformer, I think they call that, right? The transformer's not built yet, but we
Part of
have,
the work,
we
yeah.
have the check mark from hydro to do it.
Yeah.
And then I believe we had a little bit of issue about configuration of the electric buses and how they need to be fixed and configured. Is that correct still? That one, where the tour buses don't go where the regular diesel buses go? They have to be in another separated area?
No, there's no requirements for separating diesel and electric buses
Okay.
inside the garage,
Where I'm getting my
not in the parking area.
If I'm dreaming this, I'm sad. I'm a really sad human being. Sure, you guys are supposed to dream it. That's your job. Okay, so, and right now we're on budget, but it's looking like we're getting pretty close to, when would we know that? When would we, like right now with lower contingency, we scaled the project back as far as we can. But we still have these cost drivers to come. When do we have the expectation when those numbers will start rolling in next year, Q2, Q3?
Yeah, I would say next year, once we start to really get out of the ground into the building construction portion, that'll be the highest cost.
That's when the variables start kicking in a bit more when they see. Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. No more questions.
With contract with PCL, is there a lot of risk that we're still assuming?
Sorry, I didn't catch the risk portion, sorry.
Sorry, we have a contract again for the majority of the project. It came in a little higher, but the main project with PCL, is there still risk within that it could escalate for some reason?
Yeah, I think there is risk there, and that to award it, we reduce the contingency to a very low level. So obviously with any project, there are gonna be some changes or unknowns, so I think that's where the risk still lies, and we'll see those come.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, just a quick question. In terms of the building materials, any materials coming in from the United States that would be subject to tariffs?
Not at the moment. That's why I say we're gonna keep that on the ongoing risk category as we get into the building material piece of it, but it hasn't been anything flagged yet.
Anybody ready to move a motion?
I'll move public service recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 2, on to zero emission buses.
That's my question. Number 2.
Okay, I'll go through the report first. So transition to zero emission buses, quarterly status report number 9, period end August 31st, 2025. Project is also on schedule and on budget. Tentative schedule complete is 52% and 10% of adopted budget spent at 41%. As of August 31st, 2025, the city received all 45 diesel buses we'd ordered under this program. City also received 15 of the 16 zero emission buses from the original 2022 order. We're still anticipating delivery of that final bus, and 24 zero emission buses from the first extension are scheduled to start production. And our charging and hydrogen infrastructure is in progress. A little more detail on that in terms of rolling stock. As I mentioned, all 45 diesel buses have been received and are now in service. For our zero emission bus contracts, we have the original tender and 2 extensions. So I mentioned 15 of the 16 from the original are on site. We are waiting one more. It's caught in a recall issue from Transport Canada to do with windows and safety egress out of the bus. Extension 1, so the 24 battery electrics, those are going to be the first ones built in Canada by New Flyer. So we're starting those anytime now. I believe they've already started. Deliveries are anticipated early next year and into the mid of 2026. We had a second extension for up to 25 additional battery electric 40-foot buses, That was at SPC Public Works in September, so that was awarded. Construction of the charging infrastructures, we have 2 chargers commissioned, now supporting in-service operation and testing of buses. We're working on a phase 2 charger program, anticipating completing that end of this year. We had a report went forward last week for phase 2 charger purchase to Public Works, so that has been approved, and we'll work with McCain Electric for that. Our hydrogen fueling station work is ongoing on the site. Piles are going in the ground and construction activity is occurring. We have got temporary hydrogen from New Flyer for testing of the buses in the meantime, and our maintenance garage updates are primarily complete. If I could go over to risks, we have 2 new risks in the report. So one is the early shutdown of asphalt plants on our hydrogen station construction, weather dependent there. So if we need to, we can do critical items and delay asphalt work until the spring. And then, as we mentioned in our other separate report to Public Works, our phase 1 chargers are being discontinued. So we'd advanced award of phase 2 chargers, and that was the report we brought forward last week for those purchases. As opposed to doing that in 2026, we'd asked to accelerate that to 2025. A few items on the ongoing category. So purchasing power, obviously, as we finish off our bus procurements, we'll finish that risk impacts with tariffs and then lead times on the buses. And we've obviously mitigated our temporary hydrogen supply as we have received some from Newplan. Financially, we have submitted 10 financial claims to the province for payment totaling 74.56 million from the Manitoba Canada portion, and we received $57.9 million. In Appendix B, our actual costs to August 31st were $115 million, just over that. Engineering, design, construction, engineering of and design of 800,000, construction of 113.6 million, which is largely bus procurements, but in that category. And then our internal financing overhead of $590,000. But back to the main report. We have a promotional event for the launch of Canada's first articulated zero emission bus in August on the 7th. And we have a few events after the report end period date. So we had an award for the construction of the hydrogen station to Canatech in the amount of $1.5 million on September 3rd. On September 11th, we had that extension number 2 approved at Standing Policy Committee of Public Works. And we submitted a report last week for those phase 2 chargers that was approved at Standing Policy Committee of Public Works as well. That is the report.
Okay, lots going on. Councillor Orlico.
So there's where I got the wrong report. So that's why. So what is the impact both on the station? Is there any impact regarding that the phase 1 charging technology is being changed out, both on the garage or some, is that for the buses or is that for the garage like that?
It's so those chargers were kind of perfectly suited for that garage and a retrofit project because of the way that they're designed. So there's no risk of continuing to use the product. They're supported for a minimum of 10 years. Beyond that, the company we're buying them from is Siemens, who's a very well-established company. There's no risk of them going out of business. And that to switch to a different technology would have resulted in us having to reinforce the roof, possibly losing a track of buses. It's something that just didn't really work for that project. So there's no risk, and mostly it's an advantage because we were able to get those chargers at a discount, which enabled us for the same price to do 1 extra track of buses, and basically finish all of the work that we had planned at that garage during this phase of work.
What does it mean? Okay, that's the good news. Advance award of phase 2 chargers in 2022-25. So we're ordering the phase 2 chargers as well?
Sorry, it's confusing. So it was really supposed to be part 2. So we had 2 parts to the phase 1
Phase
work.
2 of the phase,
Yeah.
part 2.
Yeah, so we had installed 2 chargers based on the power that we had at the facility
Right.
initially.
Yeah.
But we had actually ordered 9 chargers
Okay.
total under the first phase of work. And we added another 12 chargers in phase 2, which is really part 3. So
Okay. But they're all gonna be phase 1 chargers?
Yeah.
At this point. So
Yeah.
they'll have no impact on the garage at this point?
No.
Okay, gotcha. And we have a problem is if they go down, we're gonna have to buy phase 2 or the newer model in the
so
future.
that garage will all be the same type of charger.
But you're not gonna have any in.
You're not be able to replace them. You could retrofit them or change them, like they're replaceable parts and
Okay,
components.
so
So
for a while, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
20 years from now.
Yeah.
Well, we keep it.
well, the life of the charger is probably not 20 years anyway. So, but yeah.
And, okay, and then I appreciate you following up with the tariffs, they getting pummeled, NFI. Both on the input cost with the steel and aluminum, and they're getting pummeled on the new 10% tariff they're taking as well. So, definitely I'm worried, for NFI, going forward. They're the biggest bus manufacturer in Canada or in North America. Mostly worried that they're going to move to the south. That's where the market is. But right now, the buses that we're doing here, they're fully Canadian owned and the batteries are from Canada? The new battery supplier?
No, so
Okay,
the issue is that Buy America compliance for the US requires that 70% of content of a bus, regardless of where it's built, is built in America. So they have not significantly adjusted their supply chains at this point for the Canadian market only. That may come in the future, and our contract does ask them wherever possible to source Canadian.
Yeah.
So they are at this point, we've asked them to assess the tariffs impact to our build based on the Canadian build, which we are the first agency, I believe, who's asked for that at this point. So we have not gotten our first tariff invoice yet, but we're asking for that to be assessed based on Canadian content as much as possible. But batteries are one that they can't.
we don't have the
right now.
production here.
Mhm.
So let's say, again, no, not hypothetical, it's good. The buses that we have been delivered, would they charge more? They say, you know what, we have to pass some of this on to you, even though you already paid your bill.
So right now, there's no counter tariffs for bus manufacturers in Canada. So simply the bus or any bus parts that travel back and forth from Canada to the US or US to Canada, isn't charged a tariff. But they are charged tariffs for any bus parts that come into the US.
Right.
So we are still charged tariffs from the US market into Canada as a pass-through tariff.
So again, you're keeping an eye on it, but I'm not hearing you say these tariffs are gonna be retroactively, we have to pay more for our buses retroactively.
So only for tariffs that we've actually been incurred on our bus build. So none of our 2022 orders had tariffs applied to them. So this will apply, the buses that line entered in October will be assessed tariffs at that point because tariffs were in play when they started.
Even when we paid for those buses already, right?
We haven't,
Not paid? Okay, so
Yeah.
we've ordered them, but we haven't paid for them.
Yeah, previous orders are not subject to tariffs there. So
Okay.
it's just the new orders.
The new orders are
Yeah.
from October, you said, or wherever, okay, but you're on it. I just read that, I was a little nervous for NFI, so that's fine. I think, and he said, I think it was in here, we may have to scale back number of buses, depending on what happens. Which we'd all be very unhappy about, because the transit system needs more buses. Quite clearly. Okay, I guess we're gonna have that discussion down the line about if we have to pivot off to diesel, if we're just not gonna be able to get enough electric buses quick enough. The system needs more buses. I think we all been hearing those phone calls. With our new system, we can't wait another 7 years to get all the electric buses we need. Not saying, but again, that'll be a discussion for, I can gather later down the line. Okay, good, thank you very much. Good, thanks, Jeff.
Okay, of the 15 buses that have been delivered, the ZEBs that we actually have, how many of them are on the streets at this point?
there are, it's 8 that are able to go into service today.
What about the remaining ones? Are they the hydrogen ones or?
Well, they're all various. We have 4 battery electric and 4 fuel cell buses that are available for service today. The other ones are held up with the window recall. So the windows have just started arriving now and we're starting to retrofit them. So they should start going out. They're otherwise ready, just they can't go. If they were already in service, they could stay in service. But if they weren't in service, they can't go into service until the window arrives. So
Are we-
now
Okay,
we've just started arrive or getting the windows last week, I think. So we are starting to put those through overtime right now.
the ones that are on the street already, will the windows be replaced on those as well?
They will, yes, but we're prioritizing the ones that aren't in service first. It actually impacts not just zero emission buses, it impacts every diesel bus under that same model of bus too. So it was just a change in regulation.
Are we being compensated from New Flyer? I mean, to have these buses not on the street? We are.
No, so the buses that are on the street, so the 8 that are not in service, there are clauses in our contract that would enable us to be compensated for that. We're looking into how that would play. There's a couple different languages that we have in terms of the buses being out of service for more than 15 days or out of 30 days, depending on the reason, so.
I see. And again, like, is there anything that recognizes the fact that we're running diesel buses instead of ZEB buses that we're paying, double the money for because they're, the energy to run them is far less. The operating costs in theory should be less. Is there any compensation or recognition of that?
The contract has liquidated damages that were based on a calculation of the cost of electricity versus diesel, so that came into play on how we calculated that cost of day. It's $450 per bus per day under the contract. So for the 15th bus that we haven't received from New Flyer, that one hasn't been delivered and the original liquidated damages clause applies, so that is still calculating liquidated damages. But we had additional clauses in there in case of delayed parts delivery or a defect that resulted in our more than 80% of our fleet being out for a period of time. So in this case, that impacts both of these clauses potentially. So we are looking to see what dates that they went out and whatnot, but we have not actually, we haven't pressed that with New Flyer at this point yet, but it is something that we are looking into to see what kind of compensation we could do those clauses.
Okay. Councillor Allard?
Just a general question. So how many, through you to the public service, how many buses are actually on the road right now? The zero emission?
As of today, driving,
Yes.
there's 4 that are in regular rotation and the other 2 are used, or other 4 are used for training mostly, but they do go into service occasionally.
Okay, and the differential on diesel, so how much are we paying hydro per kilowatt hour if there's that big a differential on the cost? Like $450
It's
per day?
complicated. It's not just the kilowatt hour, you also have your demand charges in there. So like I said, it's a difference of, I can't remember what it is, about 47 cents per kilometer versus 17 cents per kilometer from diesel versus electric.
That's, okay, so fully loaded and like, it's easy to calculate fuel because price is posted per liter. And then if you bundle all fees and charges, okay, that's the number.
It's not just that, like we also calculate our maintenance costs. We have, I don't know the dollar value offhand, but we have a like mileage or amount of maintenance per kilometer of travel. We have the cost of fuel per kilometer of travel. So all of that gets rolled into, and that was part of the calculation that we had, which was the 450 per day. So on our diesel buses, the liquidated damage that we have on that contract was only $300 per day. So we've actually upped the LDs to compensate for the fact of the difference in electricity versus diesel on this bus order, in addition to the older diesel bus maintenance and all that. So it is a calculation that was reviewed within transit to come up with that cost.
So we're loading deferred capital on the buses and on the infrastructure required to charge the buses? Or just on the buses themselves? Are we, I think I heard deferred maintenance?
Not deferred maintenance, it's just to
maintenance.
operate an older diesel bus costs us more maintenance per day than if we had a new electric bus on the street.
Yeah.
So that's where that calculation liquid damages came from.
Okay, so it's less expensive. Okay, a new diesel bus is cheaper to operate, but a old diesel bus is more expensive.
No, a new diesel bus would also be more expensive or less than an electric bus. I'm not sure exactly what.
More than electric bus.
Asking.
Yeah. I think I'll just leave it for now. Yeah,
I'll live.
yeah. I can always follow up offline.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard anything through your channels, but in terms of FCM, we saw the new federal budget last week and new infrastructure funding. They've rebranded the gas tax again. So for those of you who never learned the Canadian Community Building Fund, you don't need to learn it anymore because it's got a new name again. Have you guys heard anything about PTIF? Has there been anything with the infrastructure program? I haven't really heard much from my FCM channels yet. What's the word on the PTIF? Is the Permanent Transit Infrastructure Fund, I think.
Yeah, some of the unused Metro Stream funding, we understand, is rolling into this new infrastructure fund. So while we were contemplating on applying through that, we were encouraged to do that in conjunction with the province. They're now saying, please hold to get clarity on that. But the budget also suggested that it's going to be easier, like less bureaucracy around that program. And that program was really hard to comply and actually leverage the amounts that were allocated to us. So I'm hoping for good news there where it'll be easier to actually access the funds. So it's been really challenging up until this point. And so the fact that the budget acknowledged that is actually positive.
Good. Okay. Somebody care to move the ZEB report?
Just one quick question.
Of course, Councillor.
Yeah, these buses, they'll come complete with the full shields?
They have the same shields as we have in the current buses. They are equipped that we could add the extension. But at this point, it's their usual shield.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'll move for now, Councilor Bawani.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Allard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you to the transit folks. Look forward to seeing some of you later this week on the our update meeting there on the new network. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning.
Electricity that I can charge the buses.
Okay, so November is typically our meeting where we looking at our Q3 forecasted numbers internally, kind of forecasting out which departments might need a little extra budget authority for over expenditures. So the next three reports from three different departments are just making sure that our budget is correct, so we can get to the end of the year.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So yeah, the reason for our report is that we are asking to move money from our salary and benefits account to our non-salary accounts. We're not asking for additional budget approval or anything. Over the course of the year, we have experienced some higher than anticipated operating costs in a few areas. So this has been $510,000 of additional cost to treat some processed wastewater. And I'll just point out there is a typo in the report. So the recommendation says 500,000. But the actual report itself speaks to the 510. $320,000 unbudgeted costs required to replace media in our water treatment plant. The media just over time. Pardon? Yeah, that would be much more interesting, but this is filtration media. So yes, we did do an inspection and found we needed more than anticipated, and we add additional, and that just improves the efficiency of our water treatment process. We also had $270,000 of additional trucking costs, and that's related to part of our treatment process. We wind up with a waste stream, and that has solids to it. So we had additional solids that we needed to truck to the landfill, which then leads to the next one, which is an additional $100,000 of tipping fees for that solid. And then lastly, there were $200,000 of costs related to external equipment rentals. So our plan is to offset this additional ask, so it was 1.4 million, by a forecasted under expenditure in our salary budget.
What accounts for the under expenditure?
No, that's a really good question. So some of it is, or a large part of it is the timing of hires, because we have sequential stepped positions. You always wind up almost always with the bottom one being empty because they're here, and then as they move up, you have to backfill. So there's the step progressions. We have had some staff turnover, vacancies of some more senior positions, and we have had lower than anticipated overtime expenditures.
So will this have to be reconciled at some point?
As in, will
Like
we?
repayment?
No, it's just really moving from one bucket to a different bucket within our existing budget.
It's only just because it's going from salaries to non-salaries. That's a trigger for.
So is it a form of vacancy management?
Good.
Above their targets, I guess. Okay.
Just another question, the landfill tipping fees. And I know it's circular and I've heard the arguments and why are we charging our own departments this? First of all, did the landfill go to our department, our Brady?
Yes, it did.
Okay, so that really is just a roundabout number, cause the net, so that's okay. So I understand the accounting principles of it, but
Yeah.
in reality, it's a zero, for our overall budget, so that's fine, as long as we didn't go the other place.
Went Brady.
That'd be upsetting. Okay, thank you, I'm good.
Well, and just, when we did last year's budget, we had not brought forward the new water and sewer rates.
Correct.
That's, yes.
So part of this impact may be from the higher, sewer rates that we increased in April.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
So moved.
thank you. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 4, authorization to increase expenditure authority for the Public Works Department.
Okay, speaking to that is Jason Ruby.
Morning, Jason.
Good morning. Okay, I'm here today to request authority to expend up to $7 million over and above our budget if required. And so the storyline around this one is that the department is actually having a fairly good year right now. As of the June forecast, we were in a small surplus, forecasted to be in a small surplus position. That's $2.2 million. Our September forecast is in process, and we're going to come in a similar number to that. The surplus is mainly driven by snow, and the snow is forecast to be under by about $5 million to that point in time in the year. It's partially offset by additional costs in city beautification, so that was mainly spring cleanup. And then roadway construction and maintenance, and that was mainly due to pothole patching in the mild first quarter of the year. So there's two factors at play for why we're doing so well on snow to date. And the first part of it is that there was favorable weather during the year. And the second piece there is that there was considerable improvements in the budgeting in the multi-year budget process. Like compared to our base year of 2023 prior to this year's to the multi-year budget process, there's an additional $7.5 million of budget in for snow. So other things being equal, if we'd have been continued to budget the way we had been prior to this year's budget or the multi-year budget process, we would have had a slight deficit in snow because we've got an additional $7.5 million of budget there. We're now in a slight surplus, noting that we had really favorable weather in the first part of the year, and the budgeting is due to the hard work of the budget working group. So a couple things to keep in mind. Snow is forecast to be in our forecast process. We forecast snow to budget for the remainder of the year. So given the unpredictability of weather, it's possible that we get some snow and this turns from a small surplus to a deficit there. Part of the reason I'm here is there's a little bit of a disconnect between some of the authorities delegated to the public service between the various things that the various delegations. So one of our so one of the things that's driving this is that it's the snow policy, and that snow is we're required to clear snow in accordance with the policy. So we go out in accordance with the policy, we clear snow, we conduct ice control operations, and that results in us having an obligation to private sector companies, be it for our external snow clearing contracts or some of our hired equipment. In the financial administrative standards, I'm not allowed to pay a bill unless I have budget. If I have an overage, I have to come to committee, which is why I'm here today. So what the purpose of this report is to put the authority in place in advance. So if we do have a weather event and we do go over by budget, we're able to pay our suppliers in a timely basis versus having to write a report and then having a delay to come back to committee. point out that we're asking for essentially, this report would give us an additional $9.2 million for, the final quarter of the year. Our budget for snow and ice control for the, final quarter of the year is about $12 million. So this is it's a bit of a conservative ask. It's not designed to cover a worst case scenario, but it is designed to give us an additional $9 million to deal with overages should it snow in the lot. Should it snow? Should we have sort of heavier weather conditions in the final quarter of the year? And as well, we are also asking for the ability, much like the report you just received from Water and Waste, to if we do have savings in salaries, that we can use that to offset overages of non-salary expenditures.
Okay,
So
Councilor Malcolm.
what, I hear what you're saying. I got two questions. What was the, it's risk and weather. What was the Q for in last year, October to December? Right now, you're just saying 9 million. Well, it's really, we're already in November. It'd have to be a pretty amazing snowfalls to happen. I don't mind being conservative, but we also have to reconcile this, and I'll be asking the CFO shortly about that with the budget. So what was it the previous year? Like 9 million seems a lot.
So on page 5 of the report, line item 1, it was $21.4 million.
$21.4 million from October to December in 2023.
17.
Oh, Q4.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me, Q4, yeah. I stand corrected, it was $17 million.
So $17 million previous year we paid. You're saying you want another 9 million just to make sure that we're okay, because there's already an existing budget in there for that the Q1 or
Correct.
Q4. Okay. So this 9 million would give us how much in for Q4?
It would give us, we have 12.3 million, and that would give us an additional $9.2 million.
20-ish. Quite a bit of comfort, a cushion. We may not spend it all, absolutely, but again, so you're being quite conservative for a big snow event. Yeah, I got it. Maybe a couple of million over. Who knows? Farmer's Almanac says snowmobilers will be happy, but okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that. And my last question is the CFO. How is this $7 million reconciled in our budget? Like, is this now overage that we have to come off our SR? Who's paying for the 7 million? From what count we FSR, which is where's the $7 million coming from?
Yeah, so in-year over expenditure adjustments are not rebalanced throughout the year, so it would just be a deficit at the end of the year, which then we would need, which would
So we're gonna carry
into
I
the
see
following
that.
year.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
Carry the deficit over means we're not having a balanced budget.
Yes, we don't rebalance throughout the year when it comes to kind of over expenditures, because at the end of the
Kick the
day,
can
this
down
is
the
a
line.
cautionary.
Yeah, we won't know, right?
This is a cautionary one, so at this stage of the game, and you're completely right, we're mid-November. Kind of see where the dust settles from an accounting point of view, and then go from there.
So there's $5 million, you would just carry that to next year, so we start the year off 5 million in the hole.
Well, no, so our deficits, we're not allowed to carry a deficit really, so as you know, so we would apply it first against the FSR as a way to fund a deficit. That's kind of step number 1, and if there's not enough money in the FSR, then we need to adjust our 2026 budget in order to rebalance.
Okay, so theoretically, I'm not part of the budget, I haven't even heard the budget, anything about it, so I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. But so this $7 million, you would just, for the 2026 budget, it won't be included.
No.
But next year, in the 2026 year, we have to include it, but it's not a
The
deficit.
FSR does not cover, but right now the forecast is, as you know, we're forecasting a deficit. And the deficit is less than the balance of, the forecasted deficit is less than the balance of the FSR. So,
But even with this number, it's
Uh,
$7 million. Well, again, we just took $7 million out for a settlement.
yeah, if we have a couple blizzards, we might run out of FSR.
Okay, All right, so if we have money left over in December and there's money in the FSR, you'd cover it off through there.
Yes.
And if that doesn't work, then in the 2026 budget, somewhere along the line.
We'll need to make a budget amendment through the year
Okay,
as we go through the
All
budget
right.
process.
and no
Yeah.
snow is snow, so that's fair. Okay, then, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Chambers, go ahead.
Yeah, so in Public Works, which I sit on, we make adjustments to the snow clearing policy. Sidewalk, we've added, I believe it was 15 tractors citywide and adjusted our snow clearing budget with respect to sidewalks and how and when they're plowed. Is this part, would this cover that portion of adjustment that we made in Public Works?
Okay, that's yes and no. So our additional new machinery is it's included in our budget, and it's the equipment cost is built into our baseline budgets, and also it's city staff running those machines as well. So that is within our base budget, so it's covered by our base budget. What most of this overage would be due to is to private sector costs associated with snow clearing contracts as well as higher equipment. So your the sidewalk clearing is built into our base budgets.
When are the snow clearing contracts up for review?
No, I believe we extended, so the way that our contracts work is they're 1-year contracts with the option to extend if mutually agreed upon. So I believe we're coming into, I think we're just getting past the first year and then we're into the 2 through 5.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. How much of this, overabundance of caution is related to changes that the province made in terms of prompt payment legislation? There was changes in terms of how fast we need to pay our contractors now that was not a thing in the past. Is that one of the factors here?
It's not in this case because prompt pay applies very specifically where the Builders Lien Act applies. And so it's really kind of limited to construction projects only.
Okay.
So the snow contractors would not fall under that legislation.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. A lot of people ask.
Okay, somebody ready to move this one? Again, hopefully we don't need it. 50 days left. Let's hope there's not too much snow.
Mild weather.
So move with a little bit on wood.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Councillor Chambers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And then number 5, authorization to increase expenditure authority for the fire paramedic service.
Joining us today is Chief Schmidt and John.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
And John.
Good morning, committee members. This agenda item and report provide details of our expected over expenditure in 2025 and request for additional budget based on our half-year forecast. In summary, we are seeking a net increase of $3.19 million. This is reduced from previous years, mainly because of decisions by council to allocate an additional $3 million in the budget of 2025 to offset WCB costs, and through an allocation of $2.5 million from the WCB reserve. For context, in 2023, we had $6.89 million, and in 2024, $12.889 million in over expenditure. Without this support, the financial situation of the department would remain consistent with prior years because the same underlying issues continue to affect service delivery. These include high absence levels, high WCB claim numbers, which result in payments for salary cost while injured, medical costs, WCB administration fees, plus the backfill of absence at overtime rates to maintain our shift strength. Overall, in 2025, overtime adds 6.879 million to the overspend, and workers' compensation contributes 6.015 million. Both are then partially offset by underspending and transfers between other salary accounts of 8.620 million. Other operating expenditures are reporting smaller variances in comparison, with board ups and demolitions the largest component, although these are recoverable from the property owners and show in our forecast as increased revenue. There are also small over and under expenditures that combine to create the overall position being reported. Please note, there's a transposition error on page 7 of the report where the section headed Other is reported as 0.693 million when it is in fact 0.091 million, as noted on the summary table on page 4 of the report. There are options to reduce over expenditure from this forecasted position, but these are not recommended as it will affect service levels. When similar options were reported through committee in 2024 to achieve expenditure management targets, these options were rejected. Finally, it's important to mention that emergency medical services is experiencing the same absence levels and impact on service delivery, but is operated under contract with Shared Health Manitoba on a full cost recovery basis. This means any overspend results in Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service seeking additional funding from Shared Health or approval from them to reduce our service levels to achieve the funding level. At the half-year stage, we are reporting a 2.2 million expenditure above funding levels, but this has subsequently reduced to 0.8 million through the inclusion of recent funding letters not incorporated in the forecast and reduced the cost estimates. Discussions are currently ongoing with Shared Health in regards to the current financial position. The report therefore seeks committee approval to overspend the adopted 2025 budget by a net 3.119 million, comprising a 7.474 million over expenditure, offset by increased revenue of 4.355 million. Available to take any questions.
Quick question. I think you said it, but I got confused when you said it again. EMS expenditures are covered by the province.
That's correct.
So why are we saying here 2.165 million over expenditure when we don't have an expenditure? Is that just a timing thing? Or like we did, like, what is that?
Well, frankly, it's full disclosure. We met just last week with Shared Health. We have regular joint finance committee meetings that are required as part of the contract. And we do get questions time from time in terms of financial position for the EMS portion of the service. Again, that is fully cost covered by Shared Health. So we're simply indicating today that that's the financial position.
Why is it on our budget list? Like, if you're gonna get paid back 2.16 or 17, whatever it is, why are we considering that a cost, an over expenditure when we don't spending the money?
We operate as a fire paramedic service and we employ the staff and we manage the service delivery under a contract with Shared Health.
Right.
So we have the expenditures in our accounts, which we disclose when we come through the Community Services Committee or when we come here for over expenditure. When you look at over expenditure on its own, we have to come here and explain to you that that's the case. We don't go into too much detail because it's not a financial problem for the city to solve. It's for us to liaise with Shared Health and discuss how they want us as the principal to resolve that situation. And so what we're reporting here is that we're over expending, but also that we're going to recover that cost from Shared Health because we've had no direction to reduce service levels.
Because we run things through our books still, because there are employees, we still run it through payroll and we still have to have all the accounting to account for all the paramedic costs. So it is still something that we don't want to necessarily spend too much time at this meeting talking about because it is netted to zero at the end of the day, but it's still, from a technical point of view, it still all goes through our books as well as the recovery. And it's consistent with how we treat police actually too. So all of the funding that come from police that pay for the extra retail, extra programs, those still go through payroll, through police like normal course, and then we get recoveries from the province. So it's very consistent in how we treat both of those. And that's why we kind of ask on a net basis, the 3.119 million, because we really do want to acknowledge that some of those are recoveries. In this
So
case.
am I correct? Maybe I'm not correct. It's actually just $1 million in actual money. Because we'll get a 2.16 back, minus 3.19. So
Should be a table of the net is 3.
In the recommendation, there
Yeah,
are two
the
lines for
recommendation.
EMS. There's one for EMS expenditure, which is above budget. And there's a line for EMS revenue that's an increase as well. So those two net to zero, which means the 3.119 over expenditure relates to the fire service.
okay.
Still
The
coming
one
here
point.
for.
So it says EMS, but again, like it's so clear as mud. It's not EMS, it's actually fire. It's about right. So, you know, it says EMS expenditure is actually from the fire side that we're taking this 2.16. So it's like total EMS expenditure, overage is 2.169. I'm told we don't have the EMS expenditures, over expenditures, because we get paid back.
But we have to report the expenditure.
Well, I'm just
and
trying
the
to
revenue
reality.
separately.
Yeah, the
reality
salary
difference, two
line,
lines.
Yeah.
that 8 million, that includes both employees groups.
Right, so again, it's not just EMS expenditure, that's why I got.
Yeah,
confused.
that's right.
Right, so, okay, I'm fine with that.
And overtime, those two lines.
So 3.19
for both
still.
groups
I was
combined.
excited, there's only one. Could be. Okay, so that makes sense. All right, and now this, again, I just had the conversation before, what a deficit is or not, an over expenditure where funds. Would this be the same thing? We'll see it next year if it gets carried, but it won't be impacting this budget, but it's not a deficit. It's an over expenditure that needs to be recovered in 2026 somehow in our balanced budget. It wasn't really balanced because we had this cost.
It's not a deficit until we combine all the departments together and see what shakes out at the end. So, but we are forecasting a deficit, as you know, Counselor.
Okay,
So
that's fair enough. It's accounting stuff, yeah,
it's accounting,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, make the note.
It's the finance committee.
I'll move on to lawyers next, but no.
Putting time balance.
This year has been a very busy year for the fire service.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Arsons and just responses. Is that reflected here in this budget? To that extent, where all of the call outs that you're attending to and whatnot,
So you're referring to the
overtime or?
overtime?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has an impact. On the-
So policy wise, do we fill paramedic EMS absences the same way we fill fire? Basically, we have a call list and we try to fill it because I hear stories about as many as half of ambulance being off the streets on certain days. I mean, that's alarming. I mean, if half the fire trucks were off the streets, we'd certainly hear about that. What's going on?
We have not had situations where half the fleet is out of service.
9 out of 19, maybe close to half.
No, at peak times, we operate 31 ambulances in the city of Winnipeg. So the most concerning numbers that we saw for ambulance units off duty did occur this past summer during the months of July and August. And I believe the highest number for one shift was 7 units that were off duty. And you are correct, when we do have staff absence, short-term absence, we do undertake overtime calling procedures. But when staff are not available to work, they're unable to come in and accept those overtime shifts, then we do have to take vehicles off duty, out of service. When that occurs, we have procedures in place where we contact Shared Health Manitoba. We have contingencies in place whereby we handle inter-facility transfers differently. In some cases, we do undertake requesting assistance for IFT calls where Shared Health will provide essentially a rural ambulance to perform that transfer. But those instances are actually few and far between. We have been able to manage the call volume, but it does put a tremendous amount of stress on the staff that are in the workplace, working those shifts where we're down units. And this is not only counselor, the frontline paramedics, but also fire staff who are also maybe responding to a medical call that they wouldn't normally respond to. They have to be assigned because we do not have an ambulance available. But there are great pressures as well in our 911 communications. Can you imagine, managing multiple calls and having to search around for the closest unit to send? So those folks also feel it when we're in these understaffed situations.
Are we having trouble recruiting paramedics right now?
Yes, there is a workforce deficit, shall we say, across the province. This is something that we are working with Shared Health Manitoba. We have, there's since COVID, there's been a large number of opportunities that have opened up for paramedics across the province. They're being deployed in different clinical settings that they've never been deployed in previously. So this is both a good thing for the greater health system, but it also has put some pressures on local employers, that being ourselves and Shared Health, we're the two largest employers of paramedics in the province of Manitoba. And essentially we have 3 schools that we draw our paramedics from. Shared Health and the province have been working with the schools to ensure that the seats are full and that they're graduating full classes of paramedics. Within the last couple of years, there were some changes that were made to the curriculum through requirements that were put in place by the College of Paramedics. That resulted in a 2-year period where at least 2 of the schools were only running at 50% capacity. But we've since come through that, but that's created a little blip in terms of the labor pool that's available in Manitoba.
I know, again, as an employer, we want to make sure our employees are healthy and able to come to work. But on the flip side, I mean, paramedic services are so, life and death important. Is there anything that, I mean, nurses, when there's shortages, they can be compelled to work double shifts, is my understanding. Is there anything similar for paramedics where, they, we're so short that they have to stay on for a second shift? I mean, it's not desirable, obviously, but is that something that happens?
So we have not looked at that here in Winnipeg. It has not been discussed more broadly with Shared Health. I am aware of some of the staffing clauses that are in place for nurses. This is not something that I would recommend moving forward with in a pre-hospital setting. We are working in essentially uncontrolled environments, and certainly there would be a lot of safety considerations that we as an employer would need to look at. And I'd be highly concerned if we asked our staff to work more than their 12-hour shift. As it is now, we do have some members that push into 13 and 14 hours due to regular after shift overtime, where they're assigned to a critical call within the last hour of their shift, and often those calls can move into overtime. And so
what would be a full complement of paramedics, and what are we at right now?
We have approximately 383 paramedics employed with the city.
How many positions?
Counselor, it's 383.
Okay.
We have at last count 110 paramedics that are on long-term absence. That's either a long-term medical illness or a workers' compensation claim. So that is when we look at our staffing ratio of 1.34 in EMS, it's really that 110 workers not being available to us that really is creating this staffing pressure for the department. We have been doing a lot of work in this regard to try to keep people healthy. We had some questions last week related to a request for proposal that we have issued for some fitness training. And I'm hopeful later this week we'll be able to share some more information about things we have planned for 2026 to keep our staff healthy.
Great. Okay. Well, not an easy situation there. Okay, Councillor Orlando.
Can you give me an update on the workers' compensation file? I know we've had, not only us, and I know we've had chats about it before. I think you're doggedly trying to get some processes and stuff in place, and can you give me any update? Because that number just keeps hurting us. And again, I know there's macro stuff of hiring more people and all that stuff, but just on the new changes and the extra cost of WCB, can you give me a little bit of that update on that?
Yeah, for sure. So as you know, the 2025 budget was really a big trigger for us to start a conversation with them. We've had, I don't know, half a dozen meetings with them now with all their VPs to target 3 primary areas. And one is the number of claims that are being approved, which includes the number being submitted. So what can we do to prevent, to the extent possible, claims coming in? Also, the number of long-term claims that are, let's say, not followed up with by workers' comp, and how can we get healthy folks back to work on a path back to wellness and working. And the third thing is a review of the administrative charges that were charged every time they process any kind of payroll or a medical bill or something like that. Those admin costs have not been revisited since the 90s. So a few things have happened since then. We work very closely with Treasury Board at the province, who are experiencing similar, exactly similar trends. In addition to fire, paramedic, transit is very similar. If you map it out on a line chart, they look identical. Although that's a very different workplace environment. So, so we acknowledge that there are process challenges happening over there. The province has triggered a legislative review with workers' comp right now. So, and are looking to also trigger a special review, which would be a little more focused on value for money or kind of like an audit of that. But in the meantime, we're still working collaboratively with the workers' comp team to see if we can make progress on each of those 3 main categories. And they're being very supportive, and we're kind of working on, for example, there's a review on the longest outstanding claims that we have for folks, and re-engaging with them and seeing if they're able to come back to work. So I think some folks just got lost. And I think the workers' comp environment really did not know how to handle psychological claims when they were coming in. And so I think a lot of claims just got approved. Obviously, there's a lot of real ones that no one would challenge. But then there's a lot of ones where people are wondering why they got approved. So, and then a whole bunch of gray. So I think as they try and navigate that new environment, there's probably more claims that went through than is sustainable in the future. And so we're working with that. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of conversations, a lot of work, hopefully some progress. And it's not a light switch type of solution, but it's definitely something that we definitely want to promote the wellness of our teams and get them back to work as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I just want to put on the record, it's not for money.
Yeah, it's not for money. It's for, yeah.
But those people that got lost in the system, how many years did they just sit there getting more depressed, feeling abandoned? Because that's really hard when you get injured and just go into a spiral. So I'm glad that we're recognizing that and the wellness of our staff, because and I also recognize the fact, and I've got those emails from the association about hiring more people. Police association, lots of groups are getting those emails to us, but again, in the interim, yeah, focusing on our people, making sure they're well, and if they're well enough, how do we help them get back to work?
Well said, Councillor Olco.
Yeah, agreed, as your last week too.
Yeah, good. All right, I'm good.
Okay, somebody want to move this report?
Sure. So moved.
Councillor Olco, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I know of no new business. Somebody wants to move consent and adjournment?
Yep.
We'll take Councillor, thank you. All's in favor?
It's only been 15 years, yeah.
Who's counting?
Yeah,